Welcome to Side Alpha Leadership, a podcast where leaders can share their experiences and discuss what leadership means to them. I'm your host, David Polikoff. Good day today, and welcome to this month's Side Alpha Leadership podcast. I'm your host, David Polikoff. On the phone with me, I have a good friend of mine who's been on this podcast, I believe, more than anybody else. A workmate and a good friend of mine who also is a teacher, an instructor with me with Capital Fire Training, Sam Villani. Sam, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me on again tonight, man. I appreciate the repeat calls.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy our conversations because we always come up with some good topics, and I think that you and I kind of are on the same along lines of when we talk about the job and how we approach the job, and what the things that the satisfaction that we get out of the job, and what we try to explain to some of the newer people that are coming in of how we approach the job and why we like the job so much, and how we can totally convince them with our attitudes and our actions of that this is hands down the best job in the world. So without going rambling on like I tend to do, I want to talk today about taking care of our people and the things that we do as chief officers, how we can take care of our people. If you aren't in the fire department, you're listening to that. If you're in the military, obviously you need to take care of the men and women that are under your command. And if you're in a business, if you're running a business, you need to take care of your people there as well. When your people know that they're being taken care of by the bosses, they're going to produce a lot more for you. And it also gives you a lot of leadership credibility. It not only does it say that you're a man of your word, but you not only walk the walk, you talk the talk, but you walk the walk. So Sam, give me some input and tell me a little bit about how you, as a chief officer, I know it's a relatively new role for you, but you've definitely gotten your feet wet in the administrative side and dealing with people. How do you show the people, when you were a captain and now as a chief, how do you take care of your people?
Well, first and foremost, and I thought about this a little while when we spoke earlier, between now and when we spoke earlier today, the degree of selflessness that you have to do this thing right, because it's real easy, I think, especially today, to get promoted through the ranks, and because you perform well, you do well, it's easy to kind of get caught up in you. Whereas from day one, I think we both can agree this job was never about us; it's about them. And it's even as a new firefighter, you were selfless in kind of genuflecting and sacrificing for your shift, and up through the as you became a informal leader and then a formal leader in your organization, always putting those that are among you and that you're responsible for ahead of yourself. And you really got to set up your entire life for that. I know both of us are family men, have a wife and kids. I have a second one on the way. And my wife definitely knows how selfless I am, and she supports that. And I think you got to set up your entire life for that. You got to set up not only your professional life, but your personal life, because there are times, and I've definitely been there, where at 1 in the morning you're off duty and something happens to one of your guys, and you're 100 miles an hour down the road in your POV to help, and you carry that along every day I walk in the firehouse. I don't necessarily have to consciously think of it. I think it's always there, but you just have to be ready to sacrifice everything that you are for your people, to ensure that they have everything they need, and certainly if they get jammed up, that they're getting everything they need from you and from the organization.
I know, this whole, this leadership thing that I've kind of really dug into, and I try to submerge myself as much as possible in a lot of the material that I read and articles that I read about leadership, whether it be in fire service magazines or through the military, the military guys that I talk to. The biggest thing is that one of the number one things a leader has to understand is humility, and in that humility, understanding that it's not about you. There's the job, the organization is much bigger than you are, and you're not the center of the organization. I break it down even further when we talk about in the firefighting world, or even in the military or police, even taking it into the private sector. Your people, the people that work for you, are the most important thing. They're the ones that are producing the product. The firefighters are the ones that are getting on that apparatus, getting their gear on, pulling that hose line, grabbing the tools, forcing doors, going in, 100 miles an hour, running into the danger. They're performing for you. They're doing their job for you. Same thing with the police. The guys that are out on the street, the guys and gals that are on the street in their cars, they're the front, the tip of the spear, or however, whatever cliche you want to throw at it. They're the face of the organization. They're the ones that are going to be interacting with the public. They're the ones that are going to be shedding a positive light on the organization. Same thing in the private sector. The people that are making the widgets on the floor, if they're not doing a good job, then the business isn't moving forward. As is with the military, all the military guys that I talk to, the people that are leading their men and women say first and foremost that you got to make sure that the people are taken care of first. The book that's out there, Leaders Eat Last. That's a holdover. That's not a holdover, but that's something that was gained from the Marines, where the highest ranking officials and all the commissioned officers eat last, because they know the men and women that are the boots on the ground. They're the ones that need to be fed. They're the ones that need to make sure that you are going to. They're going to have the good meal, and they're going to be ready to fight. And you brought up about being a parent. And I try to tell people, I said, think of it this way. If you only had a small piece of bread and you had 2 kids, would you feed your kids first, or would you eat the bread first? And overwhelmingly, I said, well, of course I'd feed my kids first. And I'm not trying to say that the people that work underneath of us are children. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is that they come first, and to give the lip services, I care about my men. That's one thing. But again, we go back to what I said earlier. If you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you even something simple. I ate with my shift. Worked overtime at the Italian one last Sunday, and ate both breakfast and dinner with my the shift that I'm still on paper assigned to. And EMS eats first. The folks that are going to be out the door first, the folks that are taking the biggest beating, and the folks that are on, they're out the door and in the public's eye and helping the most, and taking the worst beatings. You want to make sure they're fed first and they're taken care of first, and then it goes down the line. So, and of course, I always get in the when I'm a visitor, I go there on Sunday breakfast a lot of my off-going shifts still. And they try to give me the old guest, hey, you're the guest, blah blah blah, and I have to fight with them because I'm still like, I'm on paper, I'm still a captain of the shift. I have a very capable lieutenant running the shift who I think the world of, and I couldn't ask for a better leader in my spot. But when I'm in there, it's it really is. It's about them, and you love them to death. You love them almost to a fault, and that's a good thing, because the alternative, I think, would yield such a negative result.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it. It's like pulling teeth. It's like verbal tennis with these guys. Like, all right, Chief, go ahead, get something to eat. And I'm like, no, man, you guys eat first. And it's like, no, man, you're the chief. And I'm like, look, the chances of me getting a call versus you getting a call is so low down the list. You are going to get out the door before I am. Get your food. And there's sometimes I'll just put the plate down and say, I'm in my office. I'll be back in a few minutes. Yeah. It's not that I just, they need to understand that I know you're showing me the respect, and I appreciate that wholeheartedly. But again, you are my guys, and I'm your chief, and I want you to be ready to roll out the door at a moment's notice. And it happens more times than not. I think the last time I ate at a different firehouse other than the one that I'm assigned to, I sat down, everybody got their food, they were eating, and I made my plate, and I sat down at the table, and I put my fork in the, I can't even remember what we were eating, I put my fork down, and then bam, the engine tower bounced out for a call, and I'm left by myself.
Yeah.
So it just kind of proves my point. At least they got a couple of bites in before they had to run the call. And so, that whole leader eats last, it is a thing. And the people that are out there listening, just because you got the white shirt and the collar pins, that does not make you the most important person in the room. The guys that are out there, the face of the fire service, they are number one. And as long as the chief officers from headquarters, the main fire chief, all the way down, need to understand that everything revolves around operations. And as long as operations is running smooth, the fire service is going to look top notch. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's nice when it comes natural, and I think it comes natural to those of us that it comes natural to. I think it's because we've had good mentors, good people that we followed. Certainly, you and I both are legacies in the fire service, and having fathers that did the job. My grandfather did the job, and as early as I can remember, just hearing about the selflessness that they carried forth to their people, and then coming up through the ranks and seeing, and you kind of. I'd like to say that you can pick your mentors, but really it happens organically, and you just got to hope that the people that you pick are the best. And I definitely been blessed with that, and certainly, even though we're talking is, we're peers on C shift as battalion chiefs. I'm an acting guy. I've certainly followed your lead, most of my career that I've known you, for sure, and every little bit of that's led into who I am today, and it's why we're here talking about it too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I try to tell people, I said, well, follow, if you want to, see the things that I do, make sure you understand the bad that went along with it, because I made mistakes along the way. And, I'm thankful that I learned from my mistakes, but I tell people, I said, hey, look, this is a mistake that I made back in the day. Don't do that, So, it's one of those, you want to pick, you want to be mentored by somebody, just to understand that, everybody has flaws.
Sure.
And as long as that person's humble enough to admit, hey, I've made mistakes in my life. Here's how I learned from it, and here's some things that you can take away from it. One of the things, it's that season. I talked to Anthony Castro's last shift. Listen to me. Last podcast, and he's retired from California. He's a battalion chief out in California, and fire engineering guy, and he runs a training website for trained firefighters, and he does a lot of stuff when it comes to assessment centers, and we were talking about it, it's that time of season, the fall, when the assessment center is coming around, and we are no different in our county. The firefighters are getting ready to sit for they actually already sat for the written test for the master's and lieutenant's exam, and the assessment center is coming up, and every year I try to make myself available to put together like a little impromptu 4 to 8 hour session of just, hey, come to me. We're going to talk about the assessment center and what it's all about. We're going to run through some scenarios, but I find it kind of challenging this year because of everything that's going on with the pandemic, and we can't have large gatherings, so we've definitely turned to the electronic age with Zoom and Teams and all that stuff.
Sure.
So I am going to hold a team, or not a Teams, but a Zoom class for this assessment center. Hopefully it'll work out. I've been practicing, so hopefully it won't be too good, or won't be too bad. So hopefully the guys that are listening to this understand that if it's a kind of a fumble in the football here and there, be patient with me. I'm still working through it. But that brings me up to I've been fortunate in my career where I've had people give me a lot of stuff. I've been very lucky. I've been blessed. I've had a lot of mentors that really showed me the job, and I feel that it's not just because of the position that I'm in, but it's my duty. I owe it to the people that are coming up that want to advance in their career to give them or pass on anything that I can pass on to them for free. And hopefully just any little bit that I can pass on, if that helps it, that makes me feel good. And I know you've helped me with that too. So talk to me about some of the things that you've done with your guys, as a captain, and now, when you first got bumped up to the battalion chief. I know you did a lot of drills and stuff like that. So talk to me about what you did to make your guys better, and how you passed on some of the stuff that you've learned along the way.
Sure. Well, when I was parked there in the second battalion on C shift, in the height of the pandemic, at a point where we weren't even doing rounds. We were afraid we were going to be a vector for the spread of COVID, so we kind of kept away. But I had taken this professional development class for instructorship, and they talked about gamification and talked about different platforms about how like our newest generation, how comfortable they are learning in this format. So it's kind of coincidental we end up in this pandemic and this remoteness and using technology to kind of push our message through. Well, our newest generation of folks, they're already keyed into that. So when I started doing these Zoom drills, and then I kind of backed off of the actual going on Zoom, and I started updating this website with I would either put a kind of like a, hey, this is something to think about with a certain type of incident, or I put I use the Sims you share, the app version, and I would put together scenarios. So I was already developing folks for this test, and it's kind of nice because I had somebody say, hey, I was at the academy taking EMT research. And I wasn't in the conversation, but I walked by and heard them talking about what you were doing for those guys and how much it meant to them. And that you kind of you almost get misty-eyed about it because those folks you're coming in, and really it's the buck stops with you. God forbid something happens to them, that kind of thing. It falls on your shoulders, and to hear that you were able to help develop some folks and help them along the way. And 10 years down the road, I could still be working with those folks, and they'll be like, hey, remember when? And I'll see them doing the same thing because again, we pass those positive traits of leadership forward, and that we're doing everything we can, even when we're hindered by a global pandemic. We're doing everything we can to pass it forward. And certainly, when it comes up to these promotional tests and stuff, you want to make folks the folks in your that you have the direct relationship with as a battalion chief, and even the ones that again, talking about your thing this weekend that's coming or that's upcoming. I did a Zoom with a guy from my shift there at 1A. I won't Kyle doesn't mind me mentioning Kyle Schultz, who he may as well be my little brother. And my wife helped he and his now wife find their house. I performed their wedding, their marriage ceremony last July, and Kyle is like he's as close to me as I could find on the job. And I got to talk to him today, and certainly I think he sent you an email. He's going to be in your session, and it's just these folks that you don't like look out for them. You don't seek them. You find one another. It's not like they seek you, you seek them. You end up in the right spots because a lot of times the folks that really have those characteristics are in the busiest and the best spots in your organization. And when I was in the second battalion, a lot of slower firehouses, they're running a lot of river and beltway stuff, not as much fuego, but those guys are in there too. They're just not in those busy spots because not everybody can be in those busy spots. And those folks I ended up connecting with, and those are the folks that I think I was able to help a little bit in preparation for promotion. And it's just, man, it's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's, think about how blessed we are blessed is so overly cliched these days, but it really is. It's a blessing that you can go into work, be in a leadership position where you're able to develop everybody around you. And sometimes it's not even formal. It's just informal. They see your moves. They see what you're doing. They know you're up until 3 a.m. sometimes looking after somebody that in their firehouse. They look at you in the morning and they're like, man, what happened to you? You weren't on any of those calls you ran. No, I wasn't. No, but I was, and they know, they're like, yeah, you were at such and such. You're at the hospital looking after this guy. And they put that in the back. They put that in their back pocket because one day they'll like they may be in on our spots.
Yeah, I think that being in that leadership spot, and people need to understand that just because if you decide that hey, I'm going to try and get to bed by 11 o'clock, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's when the job starts. I mean, yeah, if you run a call, you run a call, but there's lots of other things that happen. You have members that get hurt, and I know our department is very strict about when somebody gets hurt and how we take care of them. So I have to give kudos to our department for how we approach making sure that our people are taken care of. And then again, like we've said, I take care of my people. But you truly have to make sure that it's done 100%, 365.
Sure.
So but you definitely want to make sure that not only are you making sure, like if they have to go to the hospital, you're making sure that first of all they're being treated and they're taken care of and they're going to the hospital. Then you have somebody that's posted there and they don't leave while one of our members is there until they either get admitted to the hospital or they are ready to come home. And it doesn't stop there either. You're making sure that they're taken care of and you get them home. And we've had instances where, we have guys that live 2-3 hours away and, they've hurt their back or hurt their leg and they can't drive their car home. Our department has no issue with load them up in the back of the ambulance, put the ambulance on a detail and drop them home. And also have somebody drive their car home also. So that's one less thing they have to worry about. Oh, by the way, call the spouse and let them know this is what's going on. Everything's okay, but we're bringing them home. I mean, hopefully we would have already made that phone call long before. But and then you get them home, and it doesn't stop there either. Then you got to make sure that the rest of the shift is taken care of because it could have been something. It could have been a pretty bad injury, and those guys might need some type of stress debrief.
Sure.
So you have to take care of that, and it just goes on and on. And then as a leader in the organization, you should be making contact with that person who's off work for 3-4 weeks or more, especially if it's a person that truly just loves and breathes the job. They're disconnected from it now, and some depression can set in. So as a leader of the organization, as a chief, I take pride in calling my guys just to follow up. Hey, how you doing? Is there anything you need? If that guy told me, he said, hey, I'm having a hard time, I can't get something going on. If I'm at home and I can't get anybody to go out there, I will get in my car and I will drive to that person's house and I will help them however I can because they've sacrificed for the job and now it's our turn to make sure that they're taken care of.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that, Sam. I know I rambled on a little bit, but talk a little bit about that and how we take care of our people, not just taking care of them and making sure that they eat first, but how it goes into depth in the things that we do.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've got, so you get in this position, right? And a lot of what we do is not fully scripted. So you really, when you get in the morning after lineup and making sure, everybody's where they need to be and the shift's going off to a good start. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do rounds, you can, work, do whatever. You've got the world's your oyster, but as soon the moment something happens with one of your folks, it's everything else takes a back seat. And, obviously, we talked about it earlier, I had a recent incident where a guy, they were eating a nice dinner, got choked, literally was not breathing. The captain was sitting right across from him, slid around, tried to get his arms around him because he's small and the guy was a bigger fellow. He couldn't get his arms all the way around to do the proper Heimlich. And I don't know how he thought about doing it, but he knew he had to do something. So he gave him two firm back blows and was able to dislodge the piece of meat that was covering his airway and got him breathing. But he's something's not right. Something's in my throat. Well, long story short, he had something in his esophagus. So get him to Holy Cross Hospital. It's real easy to kind of, again, being in our positions, it's easy to say, okay, well, that guy's assigned to the ambulance. The ambulance driver's there with him. Every ambulance aide's there with him. I just leave those guys there. That guy there, he'll watch over him. But you take kind of a personal responsibility for these folks. And again, I'm in an acting spot. I'm in an acting spot for a battalion chief who's out dealing directly with the COVID response. And it's, again, another person who I've followed up through the ranks. So we followed one another. We're kind of the same amount of time on the job, but a guy I care tremendously for. And I would not want to do anything but the best for his shift while he's out. And I stayed with that guy until his father's on the job as well. His father I worked early 2000s in communications with, on the USAR team with up through the mid 2000s, and a guy I cared deeply for. And I stayed there until his dad got there, and he was in recovery. So they literally had to put this guy under to fish this piece of meat out of his esophagus. And it was,
we can laugh about it now.
Yeah, right. I mean, when they tell them, you're sitting there in the literally it's the OR, and they've called an ENT guy in off duty, the doctor, and he's like, "Listen, we're about to put you under. There's a chance we can rip your esophagus. There's some bad stuff that can happen." And you're like, "I've talked to this guy's dad. I'm going to be here, obviously." But you're like, the gravity of the situation kind of hits you, and it's one of those things. It's like I could have had that 2-year on the job guy that was with him, who was exceptional, an exceptional kid. I would trust him with that position, but that's not his job. His job is to provide service to the community through his assignment. My job is to take care of the battalion. So that's exactly what I did. I stayed on the air, and we had this talk. And again, this is another mentoring moment. Hey, man, just think about like calling us next time to let us know we might have to cover. But it was one of those things that if something popped out, I would have called you guys right away. But I stayed on the air, but I stayed at the hospital that guy until his dad was there. And we had the whole. He got lost coming in the hospital. It was a holy cross. I got lost coming out of the hospital. I couldn't find the ER. It's the middle of the night, so there's nobody in the hallway to ask. I was like, I'm never going to get out of here. But it was nice to see him go through this procedure. It was successful. He went on, he's gone on to recover fully. And, but yeah, it kind of, I think, so I'll give you an example. When I was at the academy, they were running the recruits. Chief Clemens told me a story about early in his career. So we're talking about the 60s now. He got burned pretty bad down in Silver Spring, and how little support was there because it's just not what you did back then. It's, hey, listen, sorry, kid, you're off the job. Take care of yourself, get yourself right, and come back. And he told me about this kind of like thing. He came back from being bandaged up at the burn unit, and he's sitting. There wasn't even a burn unit back then, I don't think. But he was sitting in the parking lot, and he was like, "Damn, what? Nobody's checking on me." It's one of those things. Hey, you're just off, and that's just the way it was back then. I don't think it was that way across the board. But then again, listen to some of these Getting Salty podcasts from the FDNY guys, the Warriors. It was the same way there. I think it was kind of the way society was. It was like, listen, hey kid, when you're in the firehouse, we got you. Just take care of yourself off duty, that kind of stuff. Now, granted, if it became a line of duty death or something very serious, the folks chipped in. But if it was something like that, where it's, oh, you got burned, who cares? You'll be fine. You're going to heal up. Whereas now, I think we really we go to the proper lengths early to ensure every little thing is covered for, and that person, that firefighter, knows that you, as the fiduciary of the department, as the battalion chief, is going to make sure that they're okay, and make sure they have everything they need, and make sure they get back safe and sound to the job. So.
And it really is all about taking care of the people and transitioning away from this kind of gloomy topic. But I think it is important. The people need to understand that it's not all about fighting fires, and it's not all about pushing paperwork across the desk. You do have to take care of your people, and not just letting them eat dinner first. But if they get hurt off the job, I mean, there's so much pride in my battalion that if a guy gets hurt off the job, They're doing work swaps for him. They're making sure that he doesn't have to burn through all of his sick leave. They're going to take care of his grass if it's that time of season where the grass has to be cut. I think back to our buddy RJ. When he hurt his knee, he was in a bad way, and those guys in his department really stepped up to the plate. And RJ was just in awe. I think he only had to take like 10 hours of sick leave for like the 6 months that he was off.
Yeah.
Or before he could get back to just light duty, and the American Fire Service in general, I think, has really taken a turn towards really taking care of our people, looking into the aspects of the job when it comes to sleep deprivation, mental health, injuries, physical injuries on the job. The gear that we wear, the cancers that we're exposed to, even our physicals, how they've gone from. I remember when I first got hired, I had to get my physical. I think it took about 20 minutes. It was like blood pressure. They did a chest X-ray, took a pulse, took some blood, had to pee in a cup, and that was pretty much it. And now we're getting these stress tests, and we're being treated like an athlete, although we're not getting paid like that. We're getting the same treatment that a professional athlete would get, because we are the number one, the center of the organization, the operation, the people that are doing the work. They are number one, and we need to make sure that we're taken care of. And of course, with an organization our size, that takes money. But at the end of the day, it costs way more money for somebody to be off being sick or hurt, to have to cover that position. So a little goes a long way. Let's talk a little bit about training. And I know that you hit the ground running when they moved you into this bump up spot, and with the training that you sent to your guys. And I know you were a little apprehensive about if what are they going to think if I start throwing all this training out there, and how are they going to approach it? So talk to me about some of the training, how you got them into this training, some of the things that you did, and what was their overall response to you.
Yeah. So, I remember making two phone calls, one to you, one to Steve Mann, who's a battalion chief, and on our obviously on our shift in the 3rd Battalion, and being like, I'm in this role, like how much leeway do I have? Because there's nothing written about being in an acting spot. Can I do this, and this? And both of you said, and you it's almost like you read off a script. You're the battalion chief now. You are the battalion chief of this battalion, and you need to do. You can do, because I was worried about boundaries. I was like, how deep can I get into this without interrupting, the flow? And they're like, you both were like, you're not interrupting anything. You got to be the battalion chief. If something's not being addressed, you need to address it, and don't be afraid to use your position to take care of your people. And so, that made it very easy for me to come into this whole, hey, look, we're going to do these drills. And it started with a weekly drill, started with doing a Zoom thing. And I made it, hey, listen, this isn't mandatory. We're in a pandemic. We're all dealing with different things. We're all dealing with different call levels. But at 2:00, 1,400 hours, I'm going to log on. Here's the link. If you log on, we're gonna drill. And at first there were definitely some hesitant people, but then I started assigning drill topics. Hey, and not like, hey, you do this, hey, you do that. Hey, is anybody interested in doing stuff? And my young guys stepped up first, because obviously they want the opportunity to kind of get some leadership in. But then I had a very senior captain do a hazmat drill, and I was, he said, hey man, I'm interested in doing this. And I was blown away, because you're thinking, this guy could be my uncle. and I'm not a battalion chief. I'm an acting battalion chief, but I'm still a captain like he is. And he was like, man, I think what you're doing is really cool. And I'd love to do this hazmat drill. And it was exceptional. And not only his drill, but the interaction and the feedback and everything was so good. And you kind of gave the global field this throughout the battalion. Everybody was like, man, this is pretty cool. It's kind of taking you. We normally this time in the afternoon we'd be out doing something, but because of this pandemic, we're kind of shut in or isolated, and this is a great opportunity to like get our minds thinking about. I had a guy do river calls, I had a guy do metro, I had a guy do obviously the hazmat stuff. We did some high rise stuff, just different topics, and it really became this thing. But then we got to the point where people were starting to be able to kind of go out and do company drills. So I backed the online log on portion off and accelerated the posts of tactical scenarios. And the young folks that were preparing for the test really jumped on board with it. And it was just such a, I would love, once FDIC starts back up, it would be a great topic to present on, hey, how can you, how to engage when you can't engage, kind of thing. And it really turned out to be a great thing. And I'm still doing occasional posts, and my posting is often on there, but looking at the hits and the views, people are still logging on to it and running through the scenarios and reading the posts and that kind of stuff. And it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's good that and I remember the conversation, and that was what it is. Like, hey, man, the fire chief has entrusted you to take this position. Maybe you don't have the official rank, but once you're in that position, for all intents and purposes, you're the battalion chief. It's your battalion, and you didn't know how long you were going to be there. So I said, take the bull by the horns.
Yeah.
Do what you want. Be upfront with the guy, saying this is what I want to do. This is where I want us to go, and. The fact that you actually empowered your people to say, hey, you know what? I want one of you all to lead a drill. And I would have even taken it a step further would have said, okay, I've got 3 drill topics. Here you go, and assign to somebody. Pick a drill topic. And next shift, I need a drill. I want at least a PowerPoint with at least 5 or 6 slides, or if you really want to go, make it bigger. But I really want you to give this drill, and it should be at least an hour. And say, but you make it yours.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised, especially the people that wanted to give you a little bit of pushback in the beginning when you assign them a project. Now it's a sink or swim. Hey, if I deliver a subpar project, people are going to look at me, as in the person you assigned it to, as the person that is a problem, as opposed to if you knock it out of the park, that means you've really taken ownership of that particular project. And I think you'll get a lot of buy-in. And it seemed like you did get quite a bit of buy-in from the guys. And I know you had to roll out of there, and you went across the county to another battalion to fill in, but at least now you've got that under your belt and say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. And you took over for somebody who just retired, so they don't have a battalion chief yet. He's coming. Now the question is how long is he going to be doing this COVID stuff if we're going to start to get back into it again and we start having this spun up again? We're not sure if that's what's going to happen. And you may be in. Let's hope you get promoted by the end of November.
Yeah.
So if anybody from our higher ups will listen to this, you need to make sure you promote Sam because he's kicking ass in this position. But hopefully that'll be you'll get your spot. But as it stands, you're the battalion chief, and I haven't had a chance to run a really good call with you yet. I'm waiting for it because I know we're going to knock it out of the park.
Oh, absolutely.
But
absolutely,
empowering your people and letting them take the reins and to that kind of shows them that, hey, I trust you to deliver a good product. Here's your parameters, and other than that, the rest is yours. Give a good product.
And real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our boss. Assistant Chief Rocky Nelson, who's the doc on C shift, because he's really given me these 2 opportunities. And again, so when I was back at the academy, I was doing some in-service stuff, and he was still in the safety office, and he posted up and participated in the drill. And I'd always had, I think a pretty decent relationship with Chief Nelson, but I saw him do this, and I'm like, this guy is incredible. Like, he is. He didn't have to come out of his office. He's got a lot to deal with in that safety spot. I can't imagine the amount of work that goes into his position. But he came down here, put his PPE and SCBA on, and went through this drill, and I was always pretty impressed by his style, because he's very laid back, unassuming, probably humble to a fault, but just and the fact that he's given me this opportunity, and I think he saw it in me, and I certainly I think he saw my reaction to his coming and participating, and I was blown away. And I think ever since then, he's had me on his radar, and I'm ever grateful, and there's other chiefs in this organization that in our department that are the same way, from folks that are in our division chief spots. There's definitely a handful there, that I can mention by name, that have either looked out for me or really kind of given me the, how it is, man. You get the encouragement from those folks that you're doing the right thing, and it's such a good feeling, and you see them doing the right thing, and it's like, okay, we're in a good spot here. We really are fortunate, and every department has their bugaboos, but we're real fortunate in what we have, and it's definitely enabled me to do what I'm doing so far, and giving me the opportunities, hopefully, to promote and move forward. So.
Yeah, and one of the things that you made mention to it, and we're going to transition to this. You talked about how the upper management was encouraging to you, and how that made you feel, and as a leader, one of the things that it seems that we lack is to be able to go to somebody and say, "Hey, man, you did a really good job." Whether it doesn't matter if it was a fire, if it was an EMS call, if it was waxing the hell out of the fire engine, cleaning up the firehouse, whatever, giving that encouragement, giving that praise goes a long way. Not only does it lets the people know that you're watching, but it also lets them know that you're engaged and you see what they're doing, and you truly, genuinely appreciate the efforts that they're taking to do well in their position.
Right.
So, when as a captain, how did you encourage your people without being overly overt about it? I'm not saying you got to put your arm around them and like, you're so good, you're awesome. It's not like that. It's more the subtleties. And how did you approach that as a captain, and how have you pushed that forward as a battalion chief now, working in when you were in the 2nd, now you're in the 4th?
Well, I think anybody that's worked with me will certainly say, wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an emotional guy. And I think, from the get-go, going to one engine on the A shift there, I took over for a captain. I got promoted to battalion chief, who I'm very close with. And he and I think, have so much in common. But our management styles are slightly different, not in recognizing our folks and challenging our folks and that kind of stuff. But I kind of let the shift. It was one of those organic things. I knew that I had some folks that were in firefighter positions that were going to promote or take the promotional exam. I wanted to give them the opportunity to come up with drills, do the lineup. Do things that maybe a captain or a lieutenant in a firehouse or the senior master would do. I wanted to give them the opportunity to do those things, because I knew one day they'd be doing them. And sometimes it's easy just to do that stuff. But here's what I had. So if it was at a slower firehouse, I probably would have been more comfortable with just doing it. But with such a busy firehouse, giving those folks the opportunity to do it, it kind of like it cemented that responsibility in them, because they're so busy otherwise. And it kind of it doesn't make any sense almost. It's like, okay, well, a slower firehouse, you just delegate it around. But in the slower firehouse, the folks have more time to absorb your style. They have more time to absorb things that you do as a captain or as a company officer, as an informal leader in the job. A very busy firehouse, they might not catch it because lineup hits and 5 minutes in a lineup, 2 of those units are gone. Well, before they as soon as they got in the morning, they're thinking about the lineup, thinking about the daily drill, thinking about this and that. I've delegated this responsibility to them. They're already doing it. So even though it's almost like you don't really feel bad because they enjoy it, but you're like, man, these guys are really busy. I don't know if I want to delegate this stuff to them, but I knew that was the right thing to do because they didn't have time to sit back and observe me. I needed to push them forward, and then when they made mistakes here and there, I would informally pull them aside or that kind of thing and say, hey, think about this, think about that, and it worked so well, and I'm so glad I did it that way. And I could have really been a very formal, come in and done it by the book, done it by the rules. But I kind of delegated things out and let those guys dictate things, and it worked. I think it worked out very well for that. And you go to a position in a spot, you kind of evaluate your players, the folks on your shift. You evaluate your environment, and you're able to kind of make these moves. And again, if it doesn't work, you can always drop back and punt and reorganize things and kind of right the ship, so to speak. But I saw this opportunity. I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm going to give these guys the opportunity to make these decisions and lead this way, because they're not going to get a chance off duty to do it in a 2-hour drill. We're at best going to have a half an hour drill, and it's going to be technique driven. It's not going to be leadership driven because there's just not enough time for it. So I saw this opportunity to do it, and I did it, and I'm glad I did. But a transition into, again, my first assignment as an acting battalion chief in the 2nd Battalion, a little slower, definitely a different dynamic with the river and dealing with the Capitol Beltway and the bottom of 270 and that kind of stuff. But I was able to adjust there, and then again in the 4th Battalion with where I am now, a little busier. They don't have those two really big things to address, the highways and the river. They're addressing a densely populated suburban area, and I've definitely adjusted a little bit my leadership style to them, because again, it's you address the deficiencies, but you don't go in and change. You don't go and change the rule book. You go in, evaluate how they're doing, and make those slight adjustments, because that battalion and that shift that I'm working with right now, they're top notch. I couldn't ask for a better bunch of folks, and I felt that way in the 2nd Battalion on C shift too. I really had a great bunch of folks that not only that I felt like I was able to give a little to, but they definitely gave a lot to me, and I'm ever grateful for it.
Yeah, and one of the things that you'd made mention to is I see a lot of officers doing this now, is when you have firefighters and even masters that are looking to move forward into the master position or the lieutenant position, being able to push them up and say, hey, you know what, today you're going to ride the front seat of the engine, I'm going to ride in the back, and I want you to run these calls, and I'm here if you need me, but I want you to run the calls. And one of the things that I always did is that I would tell them, I don't want you to run these calls how you think I want to run it. I want you to run it how you're going to run it.
Yeah.
I want you to be yourself. And that, I think that's like the number one thing when we start off with this assessment center training. When I do these classes, the first thing I tell them is that you have to be yourself, because you don't know how to be anybody else unless you're a professionally trained actor, is to be yourself. And I push that. I said, be yourself. Talk on the radio how you would talk on the radio. And then we'll critique each call that we run and things that we could have done better. Or if everything went great, we'll talk about the things that you did great, and then tweak it. And I think that makes them feel a little more comfortable. But not only that, it also shows them that you trust them, and that you're giving them a little bit of rope, and you're going to allow them to make decisions, which is something that we lack in the fire service, the ability to make decisions, or the fear to make decisions. So we want them to We want them to do that. And, I've gone out now where I will talk to captains. They'll say, hey, I've got them now to where instead of them calling up and saying, hey, my fire engine's out of service, or hey, I got to get this person up here. What do you want me to do? What should I do? As opposed to, hey, you know what? Hang up the phone, think about what your issue is, think about what the solution might be, and then call me up and tell me what you're going to do.
Yeah, right.
And at first they probably thought I was kind of an ass, but and I explained to them. I said, I don't want you to just come at me with problems. You're a smart person. You're a captain. You've passed the test. You've got college. You know how to think. You know how to make decisions. So don't come at me with a problem. Come at me saying, hey, here's what's going on. This is what I'm thinking about doing. I said, if I'm fine with it, I'm going to say, hey, great, thanks a lot. If it doesn't work because I've got other things going on that you're not seeing, I'll just say, hey, on normal circumstances that would work, but I got this and this going on. What do you think about maybe we do this? And we'll come up with a decision together. But that's the biggest thing is I want to encourage my officers. I want to encourage the the firefighters. Make decisions. Now we all know how to make decisions when we're in a fire. We know that we're going to lay out and pull lines and take our tools inside and do the things that we're going to do. But it's the admin stuff. It's at the firehouse. It's the stuff that's not so sexy to talk about when you have employee issues or you have apparatus issues or you have 10 different things in your in basket and you only have time enough to do 7. So what do I do? Type of things.
Yeah.
And that's where it really pays dividends. Have you bumped into any of that yet, or have you had people calling you up telling you, hey, here's my problem, solve it for me, or are they actually taking the lead and coming at you with solutions?
Yeah, thankfully, and I think it again, giving credit where credit's due. Chief Daniel, who I took over for, she retired. Her folks know to call with solutions, and that's it's the whole thing. Calling with the problem. They'll describe the problem, and if it's something they're not they've never run into before, obviously they're looking towards me for a solution. And I always said, if I don't have the solution for you, give me 5 minutes and I'll have one for you. But 9 times out of 10, even across the board with both being in this, I think I'm in the 8th month now in an acting role. Most folks call, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we want to do. What do you think? And again, it's very, very rare is the case where somebody calls and they're like, hey, this is what's going on, blah, and deal with it. And those folks, again, in a perfect world, every single person that we work with would be 100% on board with how we operate, how the department wishes us to operate, and certainly how the community wishes us to respond. That's not always the case, and those are your mentoring moments. You get folks that are not necessarily keyed in, and it's all about your approach then, right? Because especially in an acting spot, I'm still wearing captain's bugles on my shirt. But I'm in this acting battalion chief role, so I play it. I don't necessarily play it with kid gloves, but I play it in a way that kind of puts the ball in their court, but also giving them enough mentorship to say, hey, listen, even though we're technically of equal rank, I'm in a battalion chief spot. This is what I would do in your spot. And this is also what I think the department would like us to do. And I've never had a disagreement with that. I think people that don't have solutions are always happy to hear them. And I think that also develops them in a direct and indirect manner. And then I've also had folks that I think are pleasantly surprised when they offer me a solution. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Because, you think about it, again, going back societally, a generation ago even, you would offer a solution, and because that person was in a leadership position, they felt like maybe you were challenging their authority, and they would almost adjust it, and sometimes adjust it to your detriment. So they would adjust whatever your solution was to the detriment of the entire plan, the organization, blah blah blah. That no longer happens. I think that societally and certainly departmentally, we've come a long way with that. And it's nice. It's nice to have that, because otherwise, I can't imagine being a boss in an era where it's like, oh, well, I feel challenged by somebody trying to give me a solution. I'm at 2 a.m. when somebody calls you and they give you a problem and they also have a solution for it. You're like, you want to do a backflip. It's like, this is great. This, I knew this person would have a solution for me, and it's the right one, and let's go with it. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there's a couple of things to unpack there. The first thing that you had talked about, is somebody calls up and they genuinely need some help and they don't know how to do it. That's showing me a lot. That's showing me their humility. It's okay not to know something.
Right.
It's perfectly okay. You know what? I'll help you, and we'll figure it out together. Just like me, I've had people call me up and say like, "Hey, we need to do this, this, and this," and I'm like, you know what? That sounds vaguely familiar. Let me go back and check my emails, and there may be something on there. I said, but I just don't know right now. But let me go get the answer for you. And telling your people, like, hey, I don't know, but I'm going to go get the answer. A lot of times people say, oh, fake it till you make it. Not in the fire service, because they are going to know right away that you don't know what you're doing, and they're going to know you're lying.
Yeah.
And you totally lose leadership credibility that way. So humility plays a big part into that. The other part you talked about was back in the old regime of when you offer a solution and those people feel like you're challenging them. That's an ego thing, and you really got to put your ego in check in this business, because the people that are coming in, and I've said this through many podcasts, the people that are coming into this business are some smart people. They're just not these GED people, that graduated high school with a GED. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not picking on that, but you've got people that are coming in that come from all walks of life with all backgrounds that are smart. And the moment you start thinking you're the smartest person in the room, your ego is going to get put in check. It's going to be spiked like a football in the end zones. So
absolutely,
you really got to keep your ego in check. And Anthony Kestros and I talked last month about succession planning. Is you want to set the people up to take your job one day and to be successful at it. So you really need to give them the encouragement to take on projects, and you might start off with small projects and then move forward with bigger projects, and offer them the help, keep them centered if that's what they need, and if they do a good job, let them know they did a good job, and then first and foremost 100% give them the credit for the job that they did. How many times have you seen people, you put a project together and you present it to your boss, and next thing you know, they're kind of crafting it like it was their project, man, and again, it comes back to ego. You have to keep your ego in check, where you could turn around and say, look, man, that wasn't your project. That was my project. You don't say anything.
Yeah.
You keep your ego in check. And if that person is so insecure in their life that they have to take your information, then you let them have it. But at the end of the day, John Gallo, who was my captain, he was a master at this, where he would give suggestions and tell people what needed to be done, and he would craft it in a way that person thought it was their idea all along, and then they would go ahead and do it. And whether he got credit for it or not, it didn't matter, because he ultimately got what he wanted. And that was a master of manipulation there, and that's manipulation's a bad word, but he would throw those changes out there, but craft it so it made it sound like it was the person he's trying to get to implement the change. It was their idea all along, and the change would be implemented. So my hat's off to him, and I don't think could ever be that good that I could make somebody do the Jedi mind trick on somebody and find out that these truly aren't the droids you're looking for. What's that?
He would say it in such a gentle manner that it really was like a Jedi mind trick. Especially.
It was.
I literally had an interaction with him when he was Battalion 4, and I had a long mutton chops on the side of my, the sideburns, and I don't even remember how he worded it, but I immediately went to the bathroom and cut him, and it wasn't one of those things. I left that, and I was like, even if it was the wrong thing to do, I would have done it. I don't know how he crafted it that way. As a young firefighter, kind of young cocky, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I don't know how he did it, but I forget how he even worded it, but he spoke in such a gentle and almost completely non-confrontational tone. but you're like, he was like, take me to your leader now. And you're like, I'm going to take you to my leader now. Like he just, he had that gift, and you see that, certainly, I think these days we run into a little less of that stuff. But it's nice when you're able to pitch it to somebody, a problem to somebody or an issue, and they leave it and they're not upset. They're like, you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right. And I'm going to go do it right away.
Yeah, and I think that's a good trait to have. I've been pitching this for quite a while now. I want people to embrace these leadership roles, and I want them to learn how to lead people and how to be led, and to have that sense of humility, and take pride in your work, show pride to people when they do the right thing. These are things that I think that we have always been around in the fire service, but it was never down on pieces of paper or anything. And I think that we are slowly embracing this leadership void. We're filling this void that we see in the fire service. I mean, even Fire Engineering Magazine, I think the last month or month before last, was like 4 or 5 articles just on communication and leadership and leading people and all that kind of stuff. And I like seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
But so we're bumping up against the end of our hour, Sam. So again, thanks a lot for coming on the show. I always enjoy talking to you because you always, you bring a good, fresh perspective to things. And the one thing that I can say about you is you are truly a cheerleader for your people out there. You are behind them 100% when they're doing their work. You're there. You're encouraging them. You're to the point where you're almost like throwing your arms around them and jumping up and down like they just scored a touchdown, in the Super Bowl. But we need people like that in the fire service. We need people to say like, hey, you know what? I'm proud to be your boss. I'm glad that I'm your boss. I'm glad that I'm your chief, and that the work that you do it makes not only me look good, it makes the department look good, and they need to hear that. And so I'll give you the last word before we sign off.
Yeah, no, man. I just I think the American Fire Service is going in the right direction. I think we're all just we 30 years ago everybody was trying. You had to kind of, I don't know. People were so distracted from the job. You just came into the job, and then everything else you talked about was anything but the job. And I can remember coming in the fires, in the fire service in the early 90s. You didn't talk about calls you went on. People were kind of like, oh, you just don't talk about it. You just don't talk about this or that. We've flourished into such a communicative environment where we're communicating, talking about calls, talking about everything. I think we're really in the and we're progressing. I think we're in real good shape. And despite everything going on with 2020, I mean, you wait for the next thing. It's like, what's the next thing going to be? Like a tsunami in the Grand Canyon or something like that. But the American Fire Service, I think we're definitely headed in the right direction. And social media can be a really bad thing, but I think it's been such a great thing for anybody that loves what they do, because there's so many other people out there from all different walks of life and all different areas of the country that are on the same page. And all you have to do is be in it, right? When I was in elementary school, the summer camp I was in, the T-shirt said "Life, be in it," and I always thought, what does that mean? Well, that's what it is, right? All you have to do is come in and be in it, be in this thing, and you're going to do right by it. You're going to learn so much, and you're going to and really you're going to further what we're doing here, which is taking care of one another, ensuring the safety of our folks and our citizens, and really progressing, moving the fire service forward.
Awesome, man. Well, again, Sam, thanks a lot for being on the show. And until our next shift together, hopefully I'll see you on something.
That's
Until
what you
then,
don't tell you tomorrow, right?
take care. Yeah, that's right. I won't kill you. So take care of yourself and tell your wife and kids, hey. And
Same to you, brother.
until then, be safe.
All right,
Have
brother.
a good shift.
Great talking to you, man.
See you.
I'll see you.